Would you please welcome our keynote speaker, former Panther, Husky, and Raider, and most assuredly a future enshrinee in the Snohomish County Sports Hall of Fame. Here's Curt Marsh.
Thank you very much. It was really great to hear that I was invited to come and speak at this event. I'm always curious when I'm asked to speak. I've been speaking for a long time, but it's been a while since I've done some speaking. I'm semi-retired, and so I was curious as to why I was invited to this event. I know I've been an athlete and such, and I thought, well, maybe it's, they're thinking about, maybe someday I'll be in this, or why'd you have me? So I actually asked the committee, why'd you have me come speak at this event? And I was kind of shocked at the answer, and surprised, but pleased. And the young lady said, well, the committee met and we decided that we wanted to try and find a speaker that would be able to communicate with the crowd on a level that was commensurate with the people that are on the dais. We want it to be a high-class event. We want to find the most eloquent speaker we can find. And so they actually asked, they went out, they talked to a lot of people, and they just went out and said, who's the most eloquent speaker you've ever heard? Do you know of a very eloquent speaker? Using those terms, and a name that just kept coming to the top of the list would come back to them, and that's when they said, we know who we want, let's give that person a call. They called, and that guy was busy. So then they said, all right, we as a committee will decide on this now. Let's try and find someone who can, it may be a long program, let's make it entertaining. Let's find a funny speaker. Let's find someone who's humorous. So they did the same routine. They talked to people. They went to the websites of the speakers that most of us have, and they found a group that would answer the question, who's the most humorous speaker you've ever had, or heard, or heard of? And they got back responses of several people, but one name was more commonly said than many of the others, and that's when they called, and the guy said, no, sorry, I'm booked. And so they were getting a little frustrated, and so the guys were saying, I'm getting really busy now and frustrated, so they did what a lot of us do when we get that way. They said, well, let's give it to our wives. And so they had the wife that was home with one of the committee members, and he was given the task of finding a speaker, so he gave it to his wife. And his wife went through them all, and she said, really, you want me to pick the speaker? And he said, yes, dear, just do it. I was told I needed to do this. So she went through all the web pages, and she looked at all the things, and they all looked fine to her, and she just looked through the photos of all of us who are on these things, and she said, fine, here's the guy I think you should pick. And so when I came in today, I said, well, why, Mrs. So-and-so, I'm not going to tell you who it was, did you pick me? And she said, well, I found out that I just wanted to pick the best looking guy I could find. And I thought that was wonderful. And of course, I couldn't say no 3 times in a row, so I said, all right, I will come. So it was kind of a hard sell that got me. It is an honor to be here, it really is. It's quite a group that I was reading through all the things in the brochure, and you're in for a night as they talk about all the people who are here with us. Now, when I speak at places that are close to home and deals with sports, and they talk about our backgrounds, and they always mention that I played for the Huskies, I get a little nervous because there's always cougars in the room, and that tends to get a little, and I love the Cougars as much as the next guy, but I get a little shy because I spoke to schools for many, many years. And you know kids, they'll just say what's on the top of their head. And I was speaking at a high school, and it was already a bad speech anyway because it was sixth period on a Friday and it wasn't going well, and it had just started. And the reason I knew it wasn't going to go well was because I was just getting into my speech, and all of a sudden they heard my introduction, and now I'm going, and the guy stands up in the back room and goes, "I love the Cougars!" And I went, "Okay, great. This is going to be wonderful." I said, "Thank you very much," trying to not give him too much attention. I said, "That's wonderful. You know, sit down, we'll get on with the rest of my talk." I tried to go on, and I just said a few more words. He jumps up and says, "I love the Cougars!" And I said, "Great, sir. I know you love the Cougars. We all heard you. That's beautiful." I did it again. He did it again. So now I know I have to deal with this guy. So I thought to myself, how do I make an example out of this young man? I don't want to be, you know, too indirect. So I said, "All right, young man." I said, "Why do you love the Cougars so much?" He said, "Well, you see, my father was a Cougar. My brother was a Cougar. Now I'm going to be a Cougar." And I said, "Well, that's great. I mean, what a better reason to love the Cougars than that? But if your father was a jackass, and your brother was a jackass, then what would that make you?" He said, "A husky." I just said, "Check, please," and that was about it that day. So we can just let each other know that the Cougars are great, and I'm happy to be here. And Cougars and Huskies can get along, and I know this because I do remember, and this was quite a day, that I actually met a married couple that were Husky and Cougar. And I found out that they actually met at a bar watching the Apple Cup. And I met them when I was in college. And what they do at universities, I don't know if they still do it nowadays, but one of the big pitches when you are being recruited is that they will get you a summer job. And all the universities promise you these easy summer jobs for big money. And when I was being recruited, it was like, you know, "We can get you this summer job for $8 an hour. Oh, you'll be raking in the money, you know." My first year, I worked for $6 an hour in a foundry. I lost like 20 pounds. It was the hardest job I'd ever had. But one of the jobs I had, our second year, was a woman hired us, about 5 of us, to work. They had just built a new house, and she was a UW grad. And her husband was a Cougar from WSU, and he and her were just fixing up the house, and they were trying to do things themselves as much as possible. She hired 5 of us to paint the inside of her house. So a bunch of us players came over, and she was taking us from room to room, and she was describing the colors that she wanted us to paint each room. We went through the kitchen, I had a pad, and we were going in, and she would say, "Okay, I want this wall all to be blue, and midnight blue." So I write down midnight blue. And then she went over to the window and looked out, and then all of a sudden she goes, "Just a minute." She opens up the window and yells, "Green side up!" I'm like, "Do I need to write that down?" She said, "No, you're fine." And so then we go into the downstairs bathroom. And she said, I don't even remember what it was, but let's say, you know, "I want this pink." So I wrote down what color she wanted. And the same thing happens. She goes over the window, looks out, she goes, "Green side up!" And so we go upstairs, and we did this for 3 or 4 other rooms. And finally I said, "Man, every room we go into, you tell me a color, I write it down, and then you look out the window and scream green side up. Am I supposed to know what that means?" And she says, "No, but they are." And I looked out the window, and I said, what is that?" She says, "My husband hired some WSU players to lay the sod." So it wasn't... I'm sorry, we'll get off the subject. I do know that the Cougars are very happy nowadays that the Huskies now know how they feel for many years. answers, how they felt. But it's all in love. I have lost some weight lately, and I'm feeling good about it, but it's not because I'm dieting or I've had better control over going to the gym. I'm a new grandpa, and my youngest daughter, actually my only daughter, who's also my oldest daughter, had a child. This is my only grandson. I'm loving it, but he's 10 months old now, and they live with us. And she is going to school, so Grandpa gets to babysit sometimes during the evenings or the afternoons. And I love little Max, but he's crawling. And for the last couple of months, he crawls, and now he stands up on the table and with one hand. And the thing he loves to do, though, is he's got 100 toys, beautiful, brand new toys, but he doesn't play with those. Max likes to play with my keys and the TV remote control. Now, the reason I spend so much time sweating is I'm either chasing him, trying to get these things from him, or I am looking for them after he has hidden them from me. This is the God's honest truth. And there are places like under the cushions, behind the couch, in the chair, in his diaper. You think I'm kidding. I was 2 to 3 days ago. I am looking up the cushions, I'm looking in the couch for the remote control, and Max is making just a racket behind me, and I'm like, Max, be quiet. And he's playing with my keys, and he's banging them on the table. And I'm turned around, Max standing by our coffee room table with one hand on the table, looking at me, screaming, banging the table, and I look down, and he's got the remote control stuck in his diaper like it's a holster. And I'm going, Max, give me the remote. I mean, this kid knows what he's doing, but I am not looking forward to when he can walk, because will be able to do it better than me. And it was nice to see that he was a normal-sized kid, because I was a little scared. My oldest son, Jake, was a big kid, and I just had flashbacks. He's a big guy now. But he was born big. I remember when he was born, I had to go out and get cigars. They said it's a man. And I just wouldn't wish that on my daughter. It was a hard time for my wife. But he's 28 now, works for Boys and Girls Club. And, you know, kids never quit giving you headaches. My other son, last time I was in this building, I was watching him fight some mixed martial arts fight over here a couple months ago. So it's crazy, but family is a great thing. And I look out here and I see all the families here to support each other and their family and friends who are up here being inducted, and it makes me just feel even more satisfied being a part of this evening.